Viserys Targaryen was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but was he always destined to be? Was he always destined because of his Targaryen blood to have a switch go off and then he was going to be crazy and wacko? No. Like most characters in this series, he is, of course, the victim of trauma. And I'm not even talking about the trauma of being exiled, from the time that you're a small child and having to live with you and just your sister on the run. That would be enough, but this guy really, never had a chance. Because the moment Viserys was born, he was the subject of his father Aerys's increasingly unhinged paranoia. And don't forget, Aerys's shit was complicated and his own, but anyway, he put it all on his son. And why did he put it all on his son? Well, because Viserys was actually the first successful birth from Queen Rhaella, Aerys' wife, in about 17 years. This comment mentions, is there any reason ever given for the huge age gap between Rhaegar and Viserys? Because they have an age gap of 17 years, which is pretty huge. And yes, there is a reason. And that's because, unfortunately, as Targaryens sometimes do, they struggled, having a healthy child that actually lived. Now, this didn't always happen, okay? I think that this gets kind of over-exaggerated in the fandom as something that, was constantly happening. It didn't, but every, few generations, there would be, a woman who would, struggle to, give birth. Now, unfortunately for Rhaella, because she is the queen, she is expected to produce more heirs, because that is all that a woman is allowed to do if you are in a queenly position, and even if you struggle to do that, they're going to force you to try. Remember, fuck the patriarchy in the fantasy world as well as our own. And so, unfortunately, in those 17 years, Rhaella has many attempts at having a child. I believe there are 2 or 3 miscarriages, and then there are 4 children that are actually born and then just don't survive very long. There was a Princess Shaina, there was a Prince Daeron, a Prince Aegon, and then a Prince Jaehaerys. So I know we typically only think of, Rhaella and Aerys the Mad King having 3 children, Rhaegar, Viserys, and Dany, but in actuality, it was more like 8. And so as Rhaella is giving birth to these children who are not living, Aerys is slowly losing it and getting, these huge bouts of depression and then, getting very paranoid. And so by the time that Viserys is born and is actually, healthy, Aerys is really starting to get kind of a screw loose, and he gets really paranoid that other people are conspiring to kill his children, because the last prince who had lived, Prince Jaehaerys, who I think lived 6 months to a year, he lost it and thought that his nursemaid had done it, and then I think one of his mistresses he thought did it, and then he ended up torturing her and her family to get a confession. Again, he was losing it by this point, but when it comes to Viserys, he was committed, oh, this isn't going to happen again. I'm going to make sure that I can prevent this. And in doing so, I think he pretty seriously damaged Viserys. From the time that Viserys is born, Aerys has the King's Guard guarding him 24/7. He is burning any gifts that are sent from all the lords in the kingdom, sending baby presents. He's burning all of them because ooh, they might be trying to get at my kid. And then he won't even let Rhaella, his wife, Viserys' mother, be alone with him or get too close to him. Rhaella is only allowed to see him while supervised, and seemingly, I'm assuming, not a lot. So this child, even before his entire life gets thrown upside down with Robert's Rebellion and his father being deposed, he's living this very isolated existence. Now remember, the point of this is I'm trying to show how there is external stimuli that is causing Viserys to have kind of an unnatural lived experience that might be one of the many contributing factors that turn him into the person that he eventually becomes. This kind of unhinged, beggar king. Because with a lot of the Targaryens, there is this want to just label it as Targaryen madness, and I've talked before about how I think Targaryen madness isn't really a thing. There's almost always an explanation for what is going on, and there especially is one with Viserys, even when you have other people, for example, Barristan Selmy, trying to imply that he's always been a little crazy. So in Storm of Swords, when Barristan Selmy like reveals himself to Daenerys and is like, "Hey, I'm a knight of the Kingsguard. And I'm here to serve you." Blah blah blah, and she's interrogating him, being like, "Hey, didn't you like used to serve my father, and then you served the guy that killed him? Not killed him. Not that was Jaime, but the guy who usurped him." And in explaining himself, he's like, "Well, I'll try to look at it from my point of view. Your father has now been killed. Rhaegar, who was like by all accounts like everyone's preferred successor for Aerys, has also been killed. The only one who is left is Viserys." And Barristan says, "And Viserys, even at that age, seemed to be closer in temperament to his father more than Rhaegar ever did." Because remember, Rhaegar was very unlike Aerys. Rhaegar seemed to be a like smart, level-headed guy, very much unlike his father Aerys, who by that point like was full-on crazy, and so. Yeah, he's basically saying that, Viserys already seemed like he had a screw loose. Now, I just want to state, like, I love Barristan, I love Sir Grandpa, he's great. But if we're looking at the timeline here, Robert's Rebellion happens when Viserys is like 6 or 7. So, like, how crazy could this kid have seemed at 6 or 7? I don't know. But even if we were to take like what Barristan is saying at face value, it makes sense after you consider what I have just previously talked about. Like, could he have been like a little weird and a little off at that age? Absolutely. Why? Because he's gone through this like crazy isolation that his father is imposing on him because of his paranoia. And not only that, please remember that about a year after Viserys is born, while all this is going on, while he's from the time that he is born until he is 6 or 7 when Aerys dies, Aerys, a year after his birth, gets abducted, and we have the Defiance of Duskendale, which is where Aerys was held captive for 6 months, and that's where he like really loses his mind. He goes from being like paranoid and like violent and having like big mood swings to being like, "Oh, I don't bathe and I grow my nails out and I like to see people burn now." That happened when Viserys was 1. So in that time of being like isolated from the time of his birth until he leaves King's Landing at 6 or 7, his father is full on like, "Ooh, I'm the ghoul who likes to burn people, haha, I'm your father." Like, if that's one of the only people that you are consistently seeing, that's probably not good for your development, I don't think. So even though I think Barristan saying like, "Ooh, yeah, the little kid seemed a little unhinged," might be a bit of exaggeration, even if it's not, like, there's a reason there. We can tell even before he is in exile, he has had things happen in his development that I think would interrupt the normal development of a child. And so then you add on that the exile, so the running from King's Landing to Dragonstone, where they're now isolated on Dragonstone, and then he watches his mother pass away. He hears that his father has passed away. He is now on the run with Sir Derry, and then Sir Derry passes away, and now it's just him and his sister, and he is a small child, like trying to like figure out how the two of them can survive, and like shuffling them from city to city as a child, caring for this little girl. Like, yeah, no, he has a lot going on that's probably going to eat away at his mental health. And unfortunately, we then see the result of that. He turns into a monster. He turns into a monster that is not dissimilar from his father, but I think we should always like acknowledge that there is a reason behind this, because I think that's a very important aspect of George's characters in these series. Is even the characters who are monsters, we might not condone what they're doing, we might not like accept it and think that it's chill ever, but we can understand logically like how someone gets there. These are people that as much as we hate them, we should have a degree of pity, because 99% of the time, there are very, very legitimate reasons for why someone loses their mind in the way that a character like Viserys does. Anyway, drop what you want me to talk about next in the comments. If there's a character you want me to do a deep dive on, like I kind of did with Viserys here, please let me know who you want me to talk about. And yeah, hope y'all have a great night. Goodbye.